Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by a very special guest. She's one of the newest additions to the Utah Royals in the NWSL after having spent a season with Arsenal in England. Before making her stop in North London, she was a key contributor in Benfica's rise in women's football, leaving as the club's leading goal scorer with over 100 goals and winning 8 trophies. Just this past summer, she became a first-time Olympian with the Canadian women's national team. She was also part of the squad that headed to Australia and New Zealand for the Women's World Cup last year. It is none other than a very, very special and one of the most prolific goal scorers in the game, Cloé Lacasse. Cloé, a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. A little bit tired, but good.
It has been almost a week since you've landed in Utah. What's been like the settling in process? I feel like it has been quite quick.
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit of a whirlwind. I wouldn't say I'm totally settled in quite yet because I'm literally just walking into my door buying furniture right now. So that's still in process, but the team's been great. The staff's been good too. The supporters have been super welcoming. So far everything's going really well. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
What's the first few impressions of the city? I know you've mentioned before that you do like mountains in Banff. So maybe
Yeah.
it's not Banff exactly, but what's been like, I don't know if you've had much to explore the city, but I
Mhm.
guess interacting with the community and driving around, what's the first few impressions?
The altitude was definitely, whew, that was a little bit of a punch in the nose, we'll say. But the city itself is beautiful. I'm a very outdoorsy person. I love hiking, mountain biking, all these types of things. So I think this fits my lifestyle a little bit better, we'll say.
Mhm.
It's a little bit similar to home, which is nice. It's also a mining town, which I didn't know. So, getting those Sudbury roots out here in Salt Lake City is pretty cool. But yeah, everybody, like I said, it's been super welcoming. So far it feels really good to be here.
Is it fair to assume you've tried a soda float or not yet?
I've tried to what, sorry?
A soda float?
Oh,
The sodas with the ice cream floating on top.
yeah, I've a few people have mentioned them now and they've told me their favorite flavors and these combinations they're telling me are pretty wild if I'm being honest. So I'm still taking recommendations and I haven't mustered the courage yet to go, but I've seen them.
You're running through the checks before you fully commit.
Exactly. I have to kind of hear what everyone has to say, and I'm kind of taking polls without people realizing. So,
Mhm. Studying it hard. I like it. Well, I'm sure you studied it also very hard of completing the move to Utah Royals just now, an expansion team making their return back into the NWSL this season. Tell me a little bit about kind of the decision to make this move now and the project that they told you about that kind of sold you and really intrigued you to joining.
hmm well, first when it came on the table, I was pretty excited to be honest, just because I knew it was an expansion team, it was a young project, and honestly, it's a very similar situation to when I jumped in at Benfica, right? Because when I jumped in at Benfica, it had been I was coming into their second season, and this is still their first year technically, but it sort of feels like it's coming along to the second season for me anyhow.
Hmm.
So I know I've been successful in the past with young projects, with very ambitious projects as well. So I think that's what excited me most about coming out here is that I spoke to the staff, and they have an excellent plan. The infrastructure behind the group is great. They have a lot of young talent. So yeah, it's an ambitious group that, of course, being a young team, there's a big learning curve, right? But I think that's kind of where I come to play and where Claudia comes to play, Mina, Amadzin. So I think these types of players and those profiles are going to only help elevate the club.
Hmm. Yeah, you bring in with a wealth of experience, both I
Yeah.
think on the international level with the competitions that you've been at, but also at club level. What are you looking forward to kind of passing on that experience, whether if it's on the pitch of, football and soccer stuff? That's a bit of a word crisis here, so I'm sure you can relate to that as well. But also kind of just being a professional of, again, a team that has a kind of a rookie sense to it, like you mentioned, of a young team.
Yeah, I think for me, it's important to always, especially at this point in my career, I definitely have a lot to give. And I think I can give so much back to the game. And in the meantime, to this group with the Royals. So I think that was one of the other reasons that this felt kind of special coming out here. I think I do have a wealth of knowledge at this point, and experience. So yeah, I think when you're with a young club, with young players, you need those experiences. You need international players that have lived hard times, that have lived good times, and they can
Mhm.
share that and also give those young players more confidence going forward.
Hmm. You came off the bench on a 1-0 victory against BFC, another expansion team. at home, probably like 24 hours after landing in Utah.
Yeah.
But how was it to get a victory on the debut and to get the ball rolling with their new teammates?
Yeah, it was definitely cool because I found out pretty fast that there's a rivalry between the two expansion teams, right? They kind of want to be like who's doing it best right from the get-go.
Mhm.
So it was great to see the team come back from, especially, well, us, it was an international break with the Olympics, right? But for them, it had been a while as well that they had played an NWSL game. So I think that was an excellent reaction to what they were doing in the past. And I think I was watching a few of the matches previously, and I personally saw a lot of growth within the squad. So I think it was cool to see all that come together. And I believe that they gained a lot of confidence from it as well. So yeah, it was
Mhm.
cool to be a part of. And of course, it was straight off the plane, but it was good to get a win anyways.
Any post-game celebrations to kind of celebrate your debut and also your teammates' debut off a win too?
Yeah, I think just the classic debutante tunnel, the one everybody loves.
Oh, I'm sure. But you look at kind of, you mentioned there's an expansion vibe on top of it. The NWSL is a league that you've not played in before. Certainly, you spend your collegiate soccer with Iowa, so you might be quite familiar with kind of the influence that might be there. But when you look at the new league that you're going to be now joining and kind of the style of football that you'll be playing and going against, what are you most looking forward to from a personal perspective of like what are you looking to add for your game, but also the ambition of the team?
Yeah, I think like if we go back a few years ago, my main reason to go to Europe was because I wanted to gain a different level of technical and tactical awareness that I didn't have prior to that from playing in Canada and from playing in the States. So, of course, I've lived most of my career in Europe and I definitely have acquired those skills now. So,
Mhm.
I think it's about bringing all of that back to the American game as well. Because as we know in the US, it's very athletic players, very physical. The technical and tactical aspect of football doesn't necessarily always come through. So I think it'll be cool to see all of those attributes kind of come together in my game and see how it is now in comparison to when it was at Iowa. So I
Mhm.
think that's what I'm looking forward to the most, I'd say.
Yeah. And you come off a pretty special season at Arsenal in the WSL. And I think last season, when you think Arsenal last season, I think they made historical strides when it came to the attendance records and the sold out numbers and crowds that we got to see across various different locations, but specifically the Emirates Stadium. And you had some great fun there, I think. How was it to play in front of such big crowds from somebody who grew up in Sudbury and played, the classic Timbits soccer?
Yeah, that was definitely honestly, it was something that I didn't think I would get to live in my career. So for that, I'm so thankful for the fans, the Gooners. They've been incredible. Arsenal is definitely leading the charge in terms of attendance in women's football. We all know that. It's very evident when you see the Emirates completely filled up, and it's not just one game, right? It's back to back to back. So they're doing great there and involving the community and making everybody feel a part of this because truthfully, they are, right? So yeah, getting to have that special moment on my resume now. I'll definitely never forget it. Getting to score at the Emirates. Yeah, those were definitely special times for sure.
And what about that celebration that I feel like did make some highlight reels? Was it planned before or just happened like in the
No,
moment?
when something like that happens, you just kind of have to take advantage of the situation and really make it memorable. So I feel like we did that.
Oh, sure is memorable for sure. But like I think there's a lot of special highlights I think from your time in England. But from your perspective, is there a memory that stands out specifically, either a specific game, a goal, or just an interaction with perhaps one of the fans?
I think for me, honestly, it was just my teammates. Like the environment at Arsenal within each and every player on that roster is incredible in their own right. But just in terms of how genuine everybody is and how everybody wants to improve and they want to make sure they're pushing one another, I don't think I'd ever experienced that type of environment on a team before.
Hmm.
So for that reason, that's what's probably going to stick with me is just genuinely wanting to see one another succeed, even though that person might be starting the next game, right? And you might not be, and vice versa. The support and the competitive environment that they've created within the squad, it's quite special.
Hmm. And I know there was a dinner club going on between you, Sab, and Amanda. Maybe
Yeah.
was that competitive, or do we have a winner on who
Oh,
made
there
the
was
best dinners?
Amanda
Or
was the clear winner. Okay, it was also Amanda's partner as well, and he might have been second place. Okay, Sabs was, I'm not gonna say she was a contender, but she had a strong performance as well. She was a little bit stressed throughout the process, you know?
Okay.
So she lost some points in terms of hosting because she was too focused, you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas Amanda was very calm in the kitchen, hosting, doing everything she does. Probably was a 5-star meal. But hey,
Any poutines on the dinner table,
no,
or that didn't make a feature?
you know, that's my fault because the gravy, I didn't bring the gravy, and I'm not gonna buy a
Hmm.
turkey gravy and put it on a poutine because that's just shameful.
Hmm.
Oh no, that's still a well kept. I do make a good poutine though. I'd like to point that out, put it
No,
out
you're
there.
right. If you're gonna make it, you're gonna make it the way it's done.
Yes.
You're not gonna cut any corners.
Or, well, that putting turkey gravy is not even cutting a corner. That's just an atrocity.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, you can't do
You
that.
can't do that. Big, like, that's a big red card there.
Yeah, that's probably bigger than that, but let's say it's a red
Like,
card for now.
disqualify, like it's game
Oh,
over
yeah,
basically.
yeah. You're putting your nation to shame. Okay, that's just what that is.
Big time. No turkey gravy on a poutine. Big,
Never,
big
never.
nada.
No, don't do that.
I'd be crazy not to ask you about the chant that I feel like not only did the WSL fans pick up on it, but we kind of started to hear it at Canada games. It's a certain ABBA song that I think when it does play, I'm somehow putting in the lyrics of not the original song. Um, did you hear this often at training? Was it your
Oh,
teammates? Because it
the
feels
chant is,
like
yeah, I can't go anywhere without hearing the chant now. You know, it's, some may say it's a blessing, but that chant was heard everywhere. One time, oh, I was in London at a grocery store, the smallest grocery store. It's like a not even a grocery store, and someone starts chanting in the aisle next to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, how's this happening? So yeah, that the chant definitely exploded.
yep.
Whoever thought of it, big shout out to them because they did something special there. However, I'm gonna have to probably live with that for my whole life now. So, you know, it's maybe a blessing, maybe not. We'll ask me later down the road.
Okay. Because you're still keeping 24, so we might see a bit of a
Well,
variation, I guess,
I've
maybe.
heard the variation too. Yep, yep, it's starting.
Do you remember your first kind of impression of hearing it? Because it did feel like it came out of nowhere and it just kind of picked up from there.
Well, see, it's funny because I had never actually seen Mamma Mia, and I wasn't a big, I didn't know any ABBA songs, to be honest. But then, who was it? I want to say it was Beth Mead that just started chanting it in training. And I'm like, what is this? And she goes, it's your chant. And I'm like, because I had played in other countries, but like football chants in England is such, it's part of the game, right? It's a part of the
Hmm.
culture. So I didn't think it would pick up the way that it did. So I'm definitely gonna miss the Gooners singing that one. And I am very appreciative that they thought of that because it'll definitely stay in my heart.
Is there another chant that you were like, yeah, this is a good one. I'll sing it for my teammates as well.
I liked Kim's song a lot. There was a bunch of good ones to be honest.
Yeah.
Cena's a good song too. Katie has a good song. Honestly, they do. Whoever's thinking of these chants does a great job because
They
I'd say half the team has very strong songs.
yeah, they do bring the vibes, I think, and the chants in the stands. Maybe we'll have to bring that to the NSL here because
I mean, that could be a good marketing idea if you ask me.
we'll have to let them know for sure. I think they can consult some of the Gooners for that one, just in
Oh,
case.
they should. They should. Yeah.
24 has become synonymous with ABBA, but also synonymous with your name is Benfica, who you just highlighted earlier. You joined at a very early stage of the project, and it was you were coming from Iceland, and Portugal was still kind of on the rise in terms of their women's football and the league that they were building. When you look back at your history of the 4 years that you spent in Portugal, and I think the farewell was quite emotional of what you had experienced with the team, with the fans, but just the overall experience. How do you, now after moving from Benfica, spending some time at Arsenal, now at another club complete on a different continent, how do you think of your time when you look back at it?
Yeah, when I went to Benfica, it was definitely a very interesting time because truthfully, my career could have went in two directions. It could have continued to rise and rise some more, which is what we ended up seeing, but it also could have declined. So it was definitely a risk because it was a new club, right? We know that Benfica has a massive name on the global stage of football, but on the women's side, it was quite new. So yeah, it was a strange point in my career. I knew that I needed a big platform if I wanted to pivot. I knew that Benfica was a massive name in football, but I also knew that they needed a talented player, right? So I think we kind of knew that we could help each other. We didn't realize how how much or how successful we'd be together, but
Right.
I think that's kind of what was so beautiful about my experience at Benfica is that they helped me turn my career in the direction that I truly believe that it should have went that direction, in the direction that, you know what, I'm now recognized globally and internationally and on both a club and of course for Canada as well. So I think, yeah, that's why it was so emotional, just because yeah, it was definitely a very, very important part of my career. And they know that, the Benfiquistas know that as well. So yeah, I have a lot of love for that club and its supporters.
Have you been able to go and visit and watch a game since, or it's been just hectic?
No, I'm still in touch with quite a few of the players, but no, my schedule is so crazy right now. I wish I could, but but I don't have any time.
You scored a lot of goals, and I think there certainly could be an entire hour compilation of the goals that you scored in a Benfica shirt. Is there one that just is kind of a special place in your heart, either
Mhm.
because of what it meant or just the style that it happened in?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. There was quite a few special ones. I think the first when I scored against Twente, it was at Seychelles, and it was to solidify our spot in the group stage for Champions League. I think that was a massive moment for the club, but also for my career, because I knew that was kind of showing the world like, hey, you know what, you've ignored me for quite some time, but look at me now, like I'm able to compete against the best teams in the world. So it kind of gave me that validation that I didn't realize that I needed, but it gave it to me in that moment.
I'm so glad you brought up the fact that you were ignored for some time because that was exactly my next question because you were ignored for quite too many years, and you even considered representing Iceland after living there for some time and playing football there. Was that out of frustration and just not being given the recognition that you felt like you deserved, or was it just an opportunity that kind of came about and said, "Why not shoot your shot?"
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's necessarily, it wasn't any, I didn't have any ill feelings towards anyone, to be honest. That's not really my philosophy at all. I'm someone though that, like in my career, I wasn't gifted anything. Do you know what I mean? Everything was absolutely earned, and then some. But what's gotten me to this part in my career is that I just have like incredible self-belief. I have incredible people behind me, my family, my closest friends, and that's kind of who's driven me to where I am today. And with that self-belief, right, you start to see all these football matches, you see international games, and you're like, I should be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know that I belong there. And so yeah, Iceland, eventually I fell in love with the country, as we all know. I fell in love with the culture. I learned the language, and they presented me this opportunity. So of course it ran through my mind. Did I want to represent Canada? Of course I want to represent Canada. That's the country that taught me how to play soccer.
Mhm.
um, so yeah, am I glad that it all worked out the way that it did? Of course. Yeah, I'm very thankful that it worked out the way that it did.
It all worked out. You finally got your debut in 2021, and it feels like it's been nonstop from there. World Cup, afterwards the Olympics. How's it been to be able to wear that maple leaf and play across the world, but most importantly at home? And Sudbury is within the Great Toronto area, so when there's been games at BMO Field in Toronto, you've alluded that there was a lot of family in the crowd. I mean, how special are those moments to be able to do that at home?
I think coming from a smaller community, it just makes it so much more meaningful. Of course, it's easy for me to say that because I'm from a small community, but before the Olympics, I'd be running around the neighborhood. People are just literally rooting for you, right? You have no idea who these people are, but they open their window and they're like, "Come on, Chloe!" And this is before the Olympic roster is selected.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to show people that, like, even though the path was different, the path was difficult to getting there, it doesn't mean it's impossible. Do I wish that younger Canadians will have easier paths? Of course I do. And that's why I'm hoping the NSL can help that going forward, because there are a lot of talented players from smaller communities that don't get the visibility that players from the GTA might get, or from Vancouver, and so on, just massive cities. So I think that's why my story is important, just because it shows that it's not impossible, even though you don't necessarily have all the tools and the benefits of coming from a massive city.
No, Sudbury is not a massive city. It's certainly not a football place
Yeah.
either. It feels like
Mhm.
it's more hockey dominated. But you were one of very, very few Olympians to go to Paris this summer. Certainly wasn't the experience that I think you anticipated being an Olympian to play out. But now, I'm not going to say things have settled because it feels like it's been pretty quick, and now you're back in Utah, and all of a sudden you're still on the move. But when you look at kind of the week and a half, 2, 3 weeks, even pre-camp and just that whole experience of being an Olympian, becoming an Olympian, scoring in that opening goal. Um, what does it all play out in your brain like?
Yeah, I think when I got the call that I was going to the Olympics, it was a very surreal experience just because there was a point in my career where I thought I wouldn't even represent Canada, right? So then the fact that I got called into the 18 roster squad, it was just like, wow, okay. You didn't have it easy by any means, but you were still able to overcome all these obstacles and you're able to show people that, you know what, you do deserve to be there, right? So I think that's what made that initial call so special. And then, of course, being in the pre camp, being with all these other incredible individuals that I've had the honor of getting to know even more. It's a special group that we have. And I think in these Olympic Games, we were able to challenge one another mentally, physically, because we had to, because of the situation. And it was pretty incredible to see this group go to another level that I don't think any of us thought we honestly could reach.
Hmm.
So I think that's what was pretty incredible, and that's what I'm going to remember the most about my Olympic experience, because of course it was a little bit unorthodox. It wasn't what I thought it would be. But yeah, that's what I'm going to remember, is that those incredible 22 individuals that were able to overcome such a massive
Yeah,
obstacle, as we all know.
yeah, quite a resilient group, and I think with every day that went, there was a lot of doubts of where this team was going to go, and I think it exceeded a lot of expectations with certain fan bases. But on a brighter kind of question, what's the best thing about camp? And I actually asked Evelyn Vienne last time she joined me on the pod, and she said the best thing about her camp experience is board games with you and Sap. So no pressure to answer the same way. But
Mhm.
when there's an international camp going on and you join the group, what's the best thing that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I definitely think we've we've created a little bit of it's called Brandy Dog. And we've had to kind of reel it down a little bit because people are starting to think it's a little bit exclusive, because you can only play 4 to 6 players. Okay. There can't
Mhm.
be more, there can't be less. So people were starting to say it's getting a little bit exclusive, the Brandy Doggers, because of course we like to think we're the elite Brandy Doggers, you know what I
Right.
mean?
The
We're pretty
OGs.
tactical. Exactly. So yeah, those types of things are the things that people don't talk about right outside. They're just talking about you as a soccer player. But yeah, I absolutely love those moments with the team. That's what we cherish. I also love birthdays. Birthdays are fun too, because you kind of get to see individual personalities when it's their birthday and they have to do a little speech. So that's kind of fun too when you get a little camp birthday.
I feel like when we do see the videos of camp and birthdays and Halloween too, they certainly turn it up.
Yes, well, you see all the levels on the spectrum for Halloween. You don't really know
Certainly.
what you're gonna get, you know what I mean? But
That's
yeah,
the
it's fun to see people outside of soccer just to see what their personalities are like as well.
Absolutely. We're gonna end it off here with some fun questions that we received on Twitter about people, what they just want to find out about you. If you were to build a five-a-side team, given that you've played with and against some of the best players in the world, with Canada and amongst the last few clubs, what would that five-a-side team look like? Including you or not including you, regardless, whichever is easier for you.
Five, that's you're limiting me here.
No.
Okay. Hmm. Give me a second. I'm gonna put Kim Little on there because I think she just does it all. So she's in. I'm gonna add Kika in there
Mm.
because it's just a bundle of personality. So she can add the vibes. Okay. I'm going. Hmm. I need some defenders in here too. I'll definitely put Amanda in there because she's my girl. So I got to put
Mhm.
Amanda. And I think our team needs height because of the ones I chose previously. So we're going to put Amanda in there. Okay, I'm at 3. I
Good
need
shout.
more. Thanks. Appreciate it. I'll put Beth in there too, 'cause she'll be mad at me if I don't put her in there. So she can be in there as well. Okay, I need one more. I'm at 4, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
No
okay.
keeper? You're keeping the goal open?
Oh, that's gonna be okay. Don't tell Sabrina. That'll be an extra. You give me
Right.
6. Okay?
+1. Yeah.
And I'll put Sabrina because if not, she's gonna text me right away. Sabrina's in the goal. We'll get that left foot in there. Oh gosh. I'm gonna have too many midfielders if I do that. I'm gonna add. I'm gonna do it anyways. I'm gonna do Pauletta from Benfica. She's coming
Hmm.
back from an ACL injury, but Pauletta,
Ooh.
she's a special one. She's definitely a player that needs to be watched a lot more and she needs more eyes on her because she's a talent.
Hard agree. I love that 5-a-side +6 with Cloé Lacasse managing on the sidelines.
Watch
That
out.
that could cause some chaos. Last question, and it's a question that I ask any Canadian joins me here on the pod. What's your Tim Hortons order? And I feel like it you probably don't
Real.
have a Timmy's in Utah, but when you're
Oh,
back home, what are you usually getting if you are going through?
so I go to Timmy's all the time. And okay, so there's 2 orders.
Mhm.
I'll get a medium coffee with 2 milks and a vanilla dip donut. Vanilla dip donut is like my weakness. And the new thing is I get a cold brew but just totally black cold brew, none of the extra syrup or anything. And I get the
Mhm.
espresso foam.
Oh,
Espresso foam at Tim Hortons. This is a new thing that I've been ordering. I don't know if this existed before,
I
but
think it's a new addition.
yeah, give it a try.
I've
That's
I've
me.
that's certainly going to be my coffee for the morning tomorrow. A black cold brew with an espresso foam on top. Chloe, pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to hopefully seeing that 5-a-side team in action one day.
That'd be real cool. Yeah, I'm with you.